let's dive in. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be cracking open a pragmatic guide to life optimization.
Sounds good to me.
This book is pretty meaty. Covers a ton, time management to, even political literacy.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of ground to cover.
It's exciting. What I really appreciate about this book is it doesn't just dish out, these like vague self-help platitudes,
Yeah.
right? It's like
Yeah.
it actually goes into the science, gives you evidence-based advice that you can actually like put into practice.
Exactly. It's like having a personal coach, but in book form.
Exactly.
And speaking of coaching, let's kick things off with time mastery.
Sure.
Because, who couldn't use a few extra hours in the day?
The book really kind of like challenges how we view productivity. It tackles this whole multitasking thing, showing how constantly switching between tasks really messes with our focus and how much we can get done.
Oh yeah, I'm totally guilty of that. I'm constantly task switching. So what's the alternative? What does the book suggest?
Well, it explains how our brains, they actually operate in two modes, right? You got your focus mode and then you got your diffuse mode. So focused is when you're like laser sharp on one thing,
Okay.
and diffuse is when your mind is kind of wandering, but it's still making those connections in the background, and they're both crucial for peak productivity.
That makes sense. So instead of multitasking, we should be switching between these modes, like strategically.
Exact. The book calls this super productivity, and one of the key strategies is, get this, taking breaks.
Break. Seriously,
Yeah.
I thought the key to getting things done was working more hours.
Right. That's what we're always told. But no, the book actually highlights studies showing that the people who get the most done, the most productive worker,
Yeah.
they actually take a 17-minute break for every hour of focused work.
17 minutes. That's like a third of their work time, just
Ugh.
dedicated to breaks. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, it's not just about like resting your mind. It's letting your brain switch to that diffuse mode. That's where it can process everything, connect the dots, come up with new ideas. And there's a specific technique for this. It's called the Pomodoro technique.
Okay, the Pomodoro technique. How does that work? Break it down for us.
Really simple. You work in these focused bursts, 25 minutes each, followed by a 5-minute break.
Gotcha.
After you do 4 Pomodoros, then you take a longer break, like 15 to 20 minutes.
I see. So it's all about working with your brain's natural rhythms, not against them.
Yeah, exactly. It's like sprinting towards your goal, but you got those built-in recovery periods so you don't burn out.
I like that analogy.
Speaking of maximizing output, the book also challenges us to rethink how we view physical fitness.
Okay, I'm interested. How does a pragmatic guide approach fitness?
It goes way beyond just aesthetics, looking good. It makes the case that being physically fit is an investment. It's an investment in your overall well-being and, get this, your earning potential.
Wait, really? There's a link between exercise and making more money.
That's what the research suggests. The book highlights studies showing regular exercise can actually lead to higher earnings, and it makes sense when you think about it. Exercise, it's not just about your body, right? It affects your energy levels, your focus, how well you think.
Yeah.
It all makes you more effective in your career.
So it's not just about aesthetic, it's about optimizing your entire system, to perform at its best.
Exactly. And it gives you practical exercise routines, simple ways to move more every day, even if you're super busy.
You've convinced me. I'm trading those extra hours at the office for some gym time.
Good for you.
But what about fueling this high-performance machine? All right. Let's talk nutrition.
All right. Now, this is where a pragmatic guide really gets interesting. It doesn't just tell you what to eat, it explains the why behind it, so you can make smart choices.
So it's less about following the latest fad diet and more about understanding the science of nutrition.
Exactly. Macronutrients, micronutrients, clean eating, it covers it all. The book explains how your body processes different foods and how what you eat impacts your energy, your mood, your overall health.
One thing that's always tripped me up is the grocery store.
Oh, I hear you.
So many tempting, unhealthy choices. Any advice for navigating that minefield?
Yeah, there's a tip that really stuck with me. It's understanding how grocery stores are designed, how they influence your decisions.
Interesting. Tell me more. What are these tactics?
Okay, so you'll notice they put the sugary snacks, the processed stuff at eye level at the ends of aisles. It's all designed to grab your attention.
Right, yeah.
Then they use bright packaging, eye-catching displays to trigger those impulse buys.
It's not just about willpower then. It's about understanding the psychology behind it all. Knowledge is power.
Absolutely. Once you get how they're trying to influence you, you can walk through those aisles with more awareness and make healthier choices.
It's like having a secret decoder ring for the grocery store. Okay, so we've talked about time, fitness, nutrition. Now, let's decode another area where many people feel lost personal finance.
Yeah, a pragmatic guide has a ton of practical advice on this. Budgeting methods, saving strategies, different investment options, covers it all.
There was one thing that caught my eye, the 50-30-20 rule. Could you unpack that a little bit?
Sure. It's a budgeting framework. 50% of your after-tax income goes to your needs, housing, food, transportation. 30% is for wants, like entertainment, dining out. And the last 20%, that's for savings and paying off debt.
That's pretty clear cut. What about the pay yourself first idea? How does that fit in?
That's a big one. The book stresses that you got to prioritize your savings. Automate those contributions to your savings or investment account. Make it like a non-negotiable expense.
I like that. Take the temptation out of the equation. But what about people who are on a tight budget?
Yeah.
Can they really afford to save?
The book acknowledges that everyone's financial situation is different. It offers strategies for different income levels. The key is tracking your spending, finding places to cut back, maybe finding ways to boost your income.
So it's a personalized approach, kind of like having a financial advisor on call.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop at budgeting and saving. It goes into investing too. Long-term approach, understanding your risk tolerance, it's all there.
Investing can be intimidating, especially for beginners. How does the book make it less scary?
It uses a great analogy. Compares investing to choosing the right vehicle for a road trip. A sports car might be fun for a short sprint, but for a cross-country journey, you need something reliable, something that's built for the long haul.
I love that. It perfectly captures the idea of investing for the long term.
Yeah. And the book helps you figure out your investment style, choose strategies that match your goals, and how much risk you're comfortable with. It even explains different asset classes like stocks, bonds, real estate.
It sounds like a personal finance crash course. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the ever-changing job market. I mean, that can be a daunting landscape to navigate.
Really can be. And this is where a pragmatic guide doesn't shy away from the challenge. Technology, automation, AI, it talks about it all.
So instead of fearing these changes, the book encourages us to adapt, even thrive.
Exactly. It highlights how some jobs are disappearing while others are booming. Digital marketing, data analysis, software development. These are hot fields right now.
So upskilling is more important than ever.
Definitely. Continuous learning is key. Figure out what skills are in demand and use online courses, boot camps, mentorships. There are tons of resources out there.
It sounds like the book is pushing us to become lifelong learners, to constantly adapt and evolve.
That's exactly it. The job market isn't a ladder anymore. It's more like a constantly shifting landscape. You got to be agile. You got to be hungry for knowledge.
I'm really impressed with the insights a Pragmatic Guide offers.
It's a gold mine for sure.
And we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to unpack.
And as we kind of continue on this this life optimization journey, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something that's often, kind of pushed aside, but it's super important: mental health.
You're so right. We focus so much on our physical health, our finance, but if we're neglecting our mental well-being, it can really sabotage everything else. So how does a Pragmatic Guide approach this?
It really dives deep into the science of stress and anxiety, how these emotions actually start in the brain and how they affect our thoughts, our actions, our overall well-being.
It's amazing how much we're learning about the brain these days,
Right.
and how our thoughts and emotions can literally rewire our neural pathway.
It's incredible, right? And the book emphasizes that we're not just like victims of our emotions, We can actually train our brains to manage stress and anxiety better.
So it's not about getting rid of stress completely, which is probably impossible in today's world,
Right.
but more about developing healthy coping mechanisms.
Exactly. It gives you a whole toolkit of strategies, all evidence-based, for managing stress. Mindfulness, meditation, exercise, spending time in nature.
I hear so much about mindfulness and meditation these days, but I've always been a little skeptical. Does the book address that skepticism at all?
It does. It breaks it down, explains the science behind how they work. It gives you simple techniques that you can easily work into your day, even if you only have a few minutes.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. What are some of these techniques?
One that's really simple is mindful breathing. You just focus on your breath, noticing the sensation of each inhale and exhale.
Okay.
It helps to kind of ground you in the present moment, calms your nervous system down.
That sounds doable. I could see myself doing that during my commute or before a big meeting.
Exactly. It's about finding those little pockets of time throughout the day to practice. And the book stresses that being consistent is key. Even a few minutes each day can make a huge difference.
So it's like building a mental muscle, getting stronger at handling stress and anxiety.
That's a great way to put it. And speaking of building strong connections, let's turn our attention to relationships.
Oh, relationships. They can be so rewarding, but also so challenging. How does a Pragmatic Guide handle that?
It goes deeper than just surface level advice, It explores the science behind how relationships work, communication styles, emotional intelligence, even the impact of power dynamics.
Power dynamics. That's interesting.
It is. The book argues that every relationship has them, whether they're obvious or more subtle. And understanding these dynamics is essential for building healthy, balanced connection.
It's about being aware of who has more influence in the relationship and how that power is used.
Exactly. And the book gives you strategies for navigating these dynamics in a positive way so both partners feel heard, respected, and valued.
It's like having a roadmap for all the complexities of human interaction.
That's a good way to think about it. And now, let's switch gears again and talk about self-education.
Self-education is so crucial these days, right? Knowledge is always changing, and the stuff we learned in school might be outdated in a few years.
Absolutely. A pragmatic guide is all about being a lifelong learner, always growing your knowledge and skills to keep up with the world.
So it's not just about learning new things, it's about having that growth mindset, being okay with challenges, seeing learning as an adventure.
You got it. And it gives you practical guidance on how to pick the right learning resources, how to create a learning plan that works for you, how to fit learning into your busy life.
Finding the time for self-education is something I've always struggled with. I'm already juggling so much with work, family, all of that. Any advice on that?
The book stresses that you got to prioritize learning, even if it's just 15 or 30 minutes a day. It also suggests incorporating learning into your daily routine, listening to podcasts during your commute, reading articles during your lunch break.
Those are good tips, making it a habit, not a chore.
Right. And it debunks that whole myth about learning style. It argues that we all learn in different ways and encourages us to try different things to see what clicks.
So it's not about finding the one right way. It's about finding what works best for you and what makes learning fun.
Exactly. And speaking of navigating complexity and finding clarity, let's delve into the realm of critical thinking.
Ooh, critical thinking. It's so important these days with all the information coming at us from every direction. How does the book help us develop that skill?
It lays out a framework for how to analyze information, how to spot biases, how to separate fact from fiction. It gives you the tools to evaluate arguments, recognize logical fallacies, and make sound judgments based on evidence, not emotion.
So it's like a mental filter to help us cut through the noise and find the truth.
That's a great way to put it. And it goes beyond just critical thinking. It also gets into political and economic literacy, explaining different political systems and economic models.
That's so important. We can't make informed decisions about our lives or our society if we don't understand how these systems work.
Exactly. The book wants to empower you to be an informed citizen, someone who can engage in thoughtful discussions about the things that matter. It encourages you to understand the complexities of the world around you and to form your own opinions based on evidence and reason.
That's fantastic. It's like a crash course in critical thinking and civic engagement all rolled into one.
It is. And speaking of taking charge of your well-being, let's turn our attention to optimizing your sleep.
Sleep, it's often the first thing to go when we're stressed or busy. But the book argues that it's actually essential for optimizing every other area of our lives.
Absolutely. It delves into the science of sleep, explaining the different stages of sleep, how they impact our physical and mental health, our cognitive function, even our emotional well-being.
I've always struggled to get enough sleep. I always feel like I'm playing catch-up. Does the book have any practical advice for that?
It does. It debunks those common sleep myths, like the idea that you can just catch up on sleep on the weekend. And it gives you practical tips for improving your sleep quality, creating a relaxing bedtime routine, managing your exposure to blue light from electronics, that sort of thing.
Okay, I'm definitely willing to try those things. I'm ready to prioritize sleep and see the benefits.
Good for you. And speaking of optimizing your environment, let's talk about your workspace.
Our workspaces, they can have such a huge impact on our productivity, our focus, even how we feel overall. What's the book's take on this?
It really stresses the importance of creating a workspace that encourages focus, creativity, and comfort. It talks about the right lighting, noise levels, and ergonomics for a productive space.
I've tried to create a productive workspace at home, but it's tough. There are always distractions. Any advice on that?
The book suggests making clear boundaries between your work life and personal life, even if you work from home. Set up a dedicated area for work and try not to work where you usually relax or hang out.
That makes sense, signaling to your brain that it's time to focus.
Right. And as for those pesky distractions like social media and email notifications, it recommends minimizing them as much as possible. Silence notifications, put your phone on, do not disturb, even use website blockers if you need to.
It's amazing how much our environment can affect our productivity. It's like creating a sanctuary for focus.
Zach, and speaking of creating positive habits, let's come back to the power of habits.
Oh yes, habits. They can be our best friends or our worst enemies, depending on what they are. How does the book help us harness the power of good habits?
It goes deep into the science of habit formation. It explains that habit loop, the cue, the routine, the reward, and how we can kind of hack that loop to build good habits and break bad ones.
I've tried to build new habits before, but I often find it hard to stick with them. Any tips for overcoming that?
The book says it's all about starting small. Focus on just one habit at a time and celebrate those wins along the way.
That's a good point. We often try to do too much at once, then get discouraged when we stumble. It's better to start small and build momentum.
And the book has some practical strategies for staying motivated, overcoming resistance, and making those new habits last.
It sounds like it's like having a personal habit coach guiding you through the process.
Exactly. And speaking of navigating tricky situations, let's shift gears one more time and talk about the art of negotiation.
Negotiation. It's a skill we need in all areas of life, professional and personal. How does a pragmatic guide approach this? It can be so intimidating.
It breaks it down into manageable steps, different negotiation styles, the importance of preparation, the role of emotional intelligence in reaching good outcomes. It's all covered.
You know, I've never been good at negotiating. I either give in too easily or come across as too aggressive. Any tips for finding that balance?
The book emphasizes knowing your goals going in, understanding the other person's point of view, and finding solutions that benefit everyone. It also talks about managing your emotions, staying calm under pressure, building rapport with the other person.
It sounds like it's about seeing negotiation as a collaboration, not a competition.
Exact. And it gives you tips for handling tough situations, like when the other person is being unreasonable or when things hit a roadblock.
That's helpful. It's like having a secret weapon for those difficult conversations.
And speaking of secret weapons, let's explore the psychology of persuasion.
Persuasion. It's a powerful tool. It can be used for good or for bad. How does a pragmatic guide make sure we're using it ethically and
The
effectively?
book breaks down the 6 main principles of persuasion: prosody, commitment and consistency, social proof, authority, liking, and scarcity. It explains how these principles tap into our psychology, making messages more convincing and influential.
Wow, those are some powerful tools. It's almost like having a cheat code for influencing people.
It can feel that way, but the book stresses that we have to use these principles ethically, responsibly, not for manipulating people, but for genuine influence.
So it's about understanding how persuasion works and using that knowledge to communicate our ideas better and also to make informed decisions when someone is trying to persuade us.
Exact. It's about empowering yourself and others through honest.
This is amazing. A pragmatic guide really is a masterclass in personal development.
It is, and we've still got more to explore.
Let's keep diving deeper into this gold mine of knowledge.
So as we kind of get into the, really the heart of a pragmatic guide to life optimization, let's talk about a technique that can really boost your personal growth: habit stacking.
Habit stacking, huh? I've heard of it, but not really sure what it is. How does the book describe it?
It's a way to build new habits by connecting them to habits you already have.
Okay.
You're basically using the power of your current routine to make it easier to add in new positive behavior.
It makes sense, kind of piggybacking on an existing habit.
Exact. So say you already have a habit of, making coffee every morning. You could stack a new habit, like meditation, right after it.
Oh, I see. So, like finishing my first cup of coffee becomes the cue to start meditating.
Exact. The book suggests picking a specific cue from your existing habit and then immediately following it with your new habit.
So it's all about creating a clear trigger for the new behavior. What other tips does the book give for successful habit stacking?
It says to start small, pick habits that are easy to do at first, and then gradually make them more challenging or longer as you get more consistent.
That's a good point. We often try to do too much too soon, and then we give up when it gets hard. Better to start with small wins and build from there.
Total. And the book gives you ways to troubleshoot if you hit a snag. Like if you keep forgetting your new habit, it suggests visual reminders or setting alarms on your phone.
It's like having a whole toolkit of solutions for when those inevitable challenges pop up. This book is really all about giving you the power to take control of your own personal growth.
Right. And speaking of taking control, let's talk about mindfulness and meditation, something that a lot of people misunderstand.
You know, I've always been a little intimidated by those things. They seem kind of mysterious, almost mystical. Does the book make them more approachable?
It does. A pragmatic guide approaches mindfulness and meditation from a scientific point of view. It explains the benefits, the stuff that's backed by research and studies, the neurological and psychological stuff. No woo-woo, just straight up powerful tools for improving focus, reducing stress, and building emotional resilience.
Okay, now you've got me curious.
Yeah.
What actually happens in the brain when we practice mindfulness or meditation?
Well, studies have shown that it can actually change the structure and function of our brain. Like regular meditation can increase gray matter in areas related to self-awareness, compassion, and managing emotions.
Wow, so it's not just about feeling calmer in the moment, it's literally changing our brains for the better.
Exact. And the book guides you through different types of meditation, like mindfulness meditation, loving kindness meditation, even walking meditation. Helps you find one that feels right for you and fits into your life.
That's great. It's about finding what works for you, not forcing yourself to do something that feels weird or uncomfortable.
Right. Speaking of finding what works, let's go back to sleep for a second.
I think we all know sleep is important, but it's often the first thing to go when things get busy. How does the book highlight the importance of sleep for, basically everything?
The book makes it crystal clear how much sleep or lack of sleep affects us, our bodies, and our minds. It explains how not getting enough sleep can mess with how well we think, make us moody, weaken our immune system, even increase the risk of serious health problems.
It's kind of scary how much we sacrifice when we don't prioritize sleep. It's like we're slowly sabotaging ourselves.
It really is. And the book goes beyond just saying, get more sleep. It gives you practical strategies to improve the quality of your sleep, creating a relaxing bedtime routine, managing blue light from electronics.
Okay, I'm ready to revamp my sleep routine. Any other tips for creating a good sleep environment?
The book says keep your bedroom cool, dark, and quiet. Invest in blackout curtains, maybe a white noise machine. Make sure you have a comfy mattress and pillows. It even suggests sticking to a consistent sleep schedule, going to bed and waking up around the same time every day, even on weekends.
Those are really helpful tips. It's like turning your bedroom into a sleep sanctuary, a place where you can truly rest and recharge.
Right. Okay, switching gears a bit, let's talk about decision making, something we all do every day.
Decisions. It seems like we're constantly bombarded with choices.
Right.
How does the book help us make better decisions?
It explores the psychology behind how we make decisions. The common mental traps, the biases that can lead to bad choices.
I see. Can you give me an example of one of those?
Sure. Information bias, for example. It's our tendency to look for information that supports what we already believe, even if that information isn't accurate or complete.
Oh, I do that all the time. It's easy to get stuck in that echo chamber. How can we overcome those biases and make more objective decisions?
The book says it's important to be aware of them, to seek out different perspectives, to challenge our own assumptions, and to take a step back from situations that are emotionally charged, give ourselves time to cool down before making big decisions.
That's a good point. Creating space for clear thinking, avoiding those knee-jerk reactions that we might regret later.
Exactly. And speaking of creating a positive mindset, let's talk about the power of positive thinking.
Positive thinking. It's often presented as the key to happiness and success, but it can also seem a little fake or naive sometimes. How does the book address that?
It acknowledges that positive thinking isn't about ignoring reality or pretending everything's perfect. It's about approaching tough situations with a hopeful and solution-focused attitude, focusing on what you can control and taking action to create the outcomes you want.
So it's not about pretending, it's about choosing to see the opportunity in every challenge.
Exactly. And it gives you evidence-based techniques for building a positive mindset. Things like gratitude journaling, reframing negative thoughts, surrounding yourself with positive people.
Those are great tips. It's about making a conscious choice to focus on the good, even when things are tough, and using that positive energy to fuel your action.
And to keep those actions going, we have to come back to continuous learning, especially in this ever-changing world.
It does seem like the pace of change is getting faster and faster, and the skills we need are always evolving. How does the book emphasize the importance of lifelong learning in that kind of environment?
The book argues that learning isn't just something that happens in classrooms anymore. It's an ongoing process that should be a part of our daily lives. We need to be lifelong learners, always exploring new knowledge, skills, and perspectives.
So it's not just about staying current in our field, it's about broadening our horizons and taking on new challenges.
Absolutely. The book points out all the resources we have for learning these days. Online courses, podcasts, mentorships, industry events. We have to be proactive about figuring out the skills we need to thrive in the future, and then going out and finding those opportunities to learn and grow.
It's so empowering, taking control of our own development, charting our own course in a world full of possibilities.
And that's really the core message of a pragmatic guide to life optimization. It's about being proactive, taking a holistic approach to personal growth, using the power of science, psychology, and practical strategies to create a life that's fulfilling, meaningful, and aligns with your values.
This has been such an amazing exploration of this book. And for our listeners who are ready to start optimizing their lives, you can find A Pragmatic Guide to Life Optimization on Amazon, Kindle, and Google Play Books.
Happy optimizing.